The air on KL-7 tasted of ash and iron. Major Alina Cross pressed her back against the crystalline rock formation, her plasma rifle nearly depleted, her armor cracked and leaking precious oxygen into the hostile atmosphere. Blood trickled from a gash above her eyebrow, blurring her vision with crimson. She had been separated from her unit for 3 hours now. Pursued relentlessly by the Zarthok hunting party, a species known throughout the galaxy for their brutality and their insatiable appetite for conquest. She should have been dead already. By all tactical assessments, she was dead. But then she heard it, a low, rumbling growl that didn't come from behind her, but from ahead. Alina blinked through the blood and saw them emerging from between the jagged stones. 6 juvenile Kyrath predators, their obsidian scales gleaming in the dying light of KL-7's twin suns. Each stood nearly 4 feet tall at the shoulder, their razor-sharp claws clicking against stone. Their eyes, those intelligent amber eyes, fixed not on her, but on something beyond her. At the front stood Rakan, the largest of the cubs. His scales bore the distinctive silver markings of a pack leader, even at his young age. A ragged scar ran across his snout, a scar Alina had treated herself 3 months ago. 3 months ago, when everything had been different. Alina had found the cubs by accident during a routine survey mission. Their mother had been killed by Zarthok raiders, her massive body left to rot in the crimson sands. The cubs, barely weaned, had been huddled in a cave, starving and defensive. Any sane human would have left them. Kyrath predators were apex carnivores, capable of tearing through reinforced steel when fully grown. They were feared across a dozen systems, but Alina Cross had never been accused of being entirely sane. She had spent weeks earning their trust. She brought them food from the base supplies, earning herself 3 disciplinary reports and the nickname the Cub Mother from her amused squad. She learned their behaviors, their hierarchy, the way Rokan would position himself protectively in front of the smaller ones. She treated their wounds, taught them to hunt the local fauna, and spoke to them in soft tones during the long, cold nights of KL-7. Her commanding officer had ordered her to stop wasting resources on dangerous wildlife. Alina had nodded, agreed, and continued anyway. Something in those amber eyes had told her these creatures understood more than anyone realized. She had been right. Now, as the Zarthok hunting party rounded the rock formation, 7 armored warriors, each standing 8 feet tall with weapons designed to vaporize flesh from bone, Rokan released a sound that shook the very ground beneath their feet. It was a challenge roar, but more than that. It was a declaration. The other cubs spread out in a defensive formation that Alina had never taught them, had never seen them practice. It was instinctual, ancient, written into their genetic code by millions of years of evolution. But they had chosen to use it here. For her? No, Alina whispered, her voice hoarse. Rokan, no. They'll kill you. You're just cubs, run. Rokan's head turned slightly, one amber eye meeting hers. In that moment, Alina saw something that would haunt her forever. Understanding. Choice. Loyalty that transcended species. Transcended logic. He turned back to face the Zarthok, and he stood his ground. What happened next would be analyzed by xenobiologists and military strategists for decades to come. The Zarthok leader laughed, a harsh clicking sound that translated roughly to mockery. He raised his plasma lance, aiming at the cubs with casual contempt. In Zarthok culture, protecting the weak was foolishness. Mercy was a mutation to be bred out. He had never encountered human influence before. Rokan moved first. Despite his youth, despite his smaller size, he moved with a speed that defied physics. He covered the 30 feet between himself and the Zarthok leader in less than 2 seconds, his claws finding the weak points in the alien's armor with surgical precision. The other cubs followed in a coordinated assault that spoke of pack tactics refined over millennia. But they were still young, still learning, still vulnerable. Alina watched as one of the smaller cubs, Vesa, who used to curl up beside her for warmth, took a plasma bolt to the shoulder. The cub screamed, a sound that tore through Alina's heart like shrapnel. Something inside her snapped. Later, the survivors of the Zarthok hunting party would report to their commanders about the human female, who seemed to become something else in that moment. Who fought with a ferocity they had only seen in religious berserkers, who used her depleted rifle as a club, who activated her emergency plasma charges at point-blank range, who seemed to feel no pain as she tore through their ranks. But Alina would remember it differently. She would remember fighting beside Rocken, their movements somehow synchronized. She would remember the way the cubs adapted their tactics to complement her human strategies, creating a hybrid fighting style that had never existed before. She would remember the moment when the last Zarthok warrior fled, wounded and terrified, back into the wastes. When the rescue shuttle found them 2 hours later, they discovered a scene that defied all conventional understanding of predator-prey relationships, of human-alien dynamics of warfare itself. Major Alina Cross sat against the crystalline rock, barely conscious, her arms wrapped around 2 wounded cubs. Rocken stood guard over her, his scales covered in the bioluminescent blood of the Zarthok, his amber eyes scanning the horizon for threats. The other cubs formed a protective circle around them all. The rescue team approached cautiously, weapons raised. Rocken growled, low and threatening. "Stand down," Alina whispered, her voice barely audible. "They're with me. They're mine." The team leader stared at the impossible scene before him. In his 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like it. "Base command isn't going to believe this," he muttered. But they did believe it. Because the suit camera footage didn't lie. Because the Zarthok corpses didn't lie. Because the bond between a human and 6 predator cubs, forged in compassion and sealed in blood, could not be denied. 3 months later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The topic: the implications of human pack bonding abilities, and whether it represented a new paradigm in interspecies relations. Major Alina Cross stood before them, Rokan at her side, now recognized as the first non-human member of a human military unit. The cubs, officially designated as diplomatic security assets, had become a symbol of something the galaxy had never truly understood about humanity. Humans didn't just survive. They connected. They formed bonds that logic said shouldn't exist. They inspired loyalty in the most unlikely places. And when threatened, both human and those they had bonded with would stand together against any foe. History had indeed been made that day on Kale 7. Not through conquest or technology, but through something far more powerful. The unbreakable bond between a human who refused to leave the vulnerable behind, and cubs who refused to abandon the one who had shown them kindness. The galaxy would never be the same.